So we think, yes, he's not sure myself. I was that's all right. I think very likely to design. Which is partially. Yeah, that's how better. You got Miss Lee.
Round and a half.
Oh, yeah. Come on, you make me look bad, Carl. That ain't right.
Yeah, hot milk.
I'm sure she told you that.
Mr. Eames, I know you might be tempted not to eat them because you might think I cooked them, but I didn't cook them. Mrs. cooked them, and I wasn't even there. So they're good to go. Just FYI. Just FYI. I couldn't back and Mr. Eames is eating them, so they trust me. For once. No, you're gonna want some more. You're gonna want some more. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
No, but you said
Yeah.
That's right. I saw him.
Everyone has quirks.
Yeah, I understand.
I'll let you guys know if I can think of anybody. I can.
I like the Christmas decorations.
Yeah, I'm the Grinch.
I know.
There's some people that are
Hey, I didn't want your socks.
you never know.
Yeah, hey, that's me. I am the Grinch. That is me.
They got somebody.
I know a lot of college people are
Good afternoon, everyone.
Afternoon.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
This thing working?
I'll let you guys know.
I don't think it's on.
Anybody that's interesting. Or like hear of someone.
It's on. Good afternoon, everyone, and good evening. I'd like to call the regular meeting of Sumter County Council for December 14th, 2021 to order. Let us all stand. Ms. B, would you please give us an invocation? Let us remain standing for the pledge of allegiance.
Sure. Let us pray. Our dear kind Heavenly Father, we do thank you for allowing us to come to the table again at this last meeting of the year. We thank you for all your blessings that you have bestowed upon us throughout this whole year. And we just thank you for bringing us to this season where we can celebrate the one that you have given to us as Savior, the one that we can call Mighty God, and the one that we can say that our government sits upon his shoulder. And we just ask that you help us to always be mindful, to be deserving, conduct ourselves as we are sitting upon his shoulders. And God, we just thank you for allowing us to escape the damages that came through that storm that affected so many others. We understand that the same system that affected them came through us, and it had been only a little wind and a little rain. It's not that we've been so good, but you've been gracious and merciful upon us, and we thank you for that. And we just ask that you continue to be with us as we go through this meeting. Help us to conduct this business the way that you would have us to do. Help us to have wisdom and understanding and kind hearts to conduct ourselves in a way that you would have us to make decisions that are on behalf of the constituents that we serve. These are all blessings we thank and ask in the precious name of the Savior whom we celebrate. Amen.
Amen.
He's behind.
Oh, he
Yes.
is, okay. U.S. Air Force veteran Albert. U.S. Air Force veteran Albert Davis served our country for 31 years and retired as a lieutenant colonel. He is Gulf War veteran who served in Saudi Arabia. His last duty station was Shore Force Base, and he decided to make Sumter his home. He is currently the Midland chapter of the Buffalo Soldiers president, a member of the Sumter Behavioral Health Services Board, member of the American Legion Post 202, and a proud member of the Phi Beta Sigma fraternity. He is married to Alice Claire Davis for 49 years and has one daughter, 3 grandchildren, and 2 great-grandchildren. He lives in Sumter County Council District 2. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening again, everyone. Good evening. Let's recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Right here. Here we go. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your service. Mrs. Blanding, are there any changes to the agenda?
No, sir.
Move for approval.
Chairman.
Moved by Mr. Baton, seconded by Ms. McCain, that we approve the agenda for our regular meeting on the 14th. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye. All opposed? Agenda is approved. I have a motion to approve our meetings of our regular meeting for Tuesday, November 23rd, and for the special meeting that was also held on Tuesday, November 23rd, and Tuesday, November 3rd.
Second.
Been moved and seconded by Mr. Edens and Mr. Byrd that we approve all 3 of those meeting minutes. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving them, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Minutes for the regular meeting and 2 special meetings are approved. Land use matters, RZ 2122.
Good evening, Helen Rubin for planning staff. RZ 2122 is at 4189 Thomas Sumter Highway. The applicant is Mr. Christopher Patton as the authorized agent. This request is to rezone approximately 1.35 acres of a tract of land from general commercial and agricultural conservation to strictly general commercial zoning. It actually encompasses 2 addresses, which are 4185 and 4189 Thomas Sumter Highway. In this graphic, it looks like 1 piece of property, but it's actually 2. The line splits down that pipe stem between the 2 pieces. These 2 pieces of property are currently split zoned agricultural conservation and general commercial. They're wishing to use the property to open an automotive dealership, which in the agricultural conservation district is not permitted. So they're seeking to rezone the entire tract to general commercial so that they can do that. Currently, 4185 Thomas Sumter Highway is developed, and it does contain 2 commercial buildings, but the balance of the property is undeveloped. That would be the east or west side of the tract. This kind of lays out the split zoning situation. This is really a vestige of when zoning was done in 1999. They actually buffered 300 feet off the center line of the roads. So we do have a strip on both sides of Thomas Sumter Highway and Camden Highway, where not the entire piece of property in some instances are one sole zoning district. So a way to correct that is for an individual property owner to come in and request to rezone the balance of the property, and that's what they're doing today. This is how the property looked in the 2020 aerial imagery earlier this year. It still looks very much this way. It does back up to some existing residential development, but there is sufficient space in there and existing growth to buffer between them and the neighbors to the north. This is how the property looks today. It's currently being used for the Right Way Plumbing building. This business is actually building a new facility further closer to town across the street from Calcium Farms. They're getting closer to being done with that project, so they're marketing this property. It is in the military protection planning area. This request to rezone commercial in the military protection area is supported by the 2040 plan. In the AC zoning district, residential uses, which include manufactured housing, are a by right use, which is not something that the military protection planning area is highly supportive of. So this request to rezone the property to commercial is actually in alignment with the comprehensive plan because it does remove that entitlement for manufactured housing. Planning Commission does recommend approval of this request. On balance, the use of this property and the proposed use of the property is in alignment with adjacent tracts. And additionally, fixing this split zoning actually allows the property to have a better ability to develop it. The AC zoning district has some really crazy setbacks in relation to when it, for commercial development that general commercial does not. Furthermore, it is supported by the 2040 plan. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Could you back it back up to where you showed the 300 foot? Would you agree that we probably should extend all of those properties right there, going back to property line, back to commercial? I'm looking at it thinking we probably should, but, you know, just I'm trying to get your opinion. I mean, knowing if it goes commercial, and yeah, it does back up to residential, you still got certain setbacks backing up to residential.
So because the agricultural conservation zoning district's not actually a residential zoning district, rezoning it to commercial on these back parcels actually lessen the setback. So it would go from a 50-foot setback, which is what the AC district requires right now, to a 20-foot setback. While I'm not necessarily opposed to that, I have to look at how well that's being used and what's currently there to kind of give you a better idea of what I would think in terms of all of that tract.
Okay.
I mean, it may be appropriate, but it really just depends on how those pieces are currently being used and what those businesses are.
Mr. Rubin, this is in the councilman from Gazelle's district, correct?
I believe it is in District 2, yes.
I'm very familiar with that whole neighborhood on Brattle Drive. Those lots are big. It won't affect them. I feel comfortable with it.
Move approval first read.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Byrd and seconded by Mr. Baker that we have first reading on RZ 2122. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving first reading, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? First reading is approved for RZ 2122. Ordinance number 21965. Mr. Wright.
Mr. Chairman, members of council, this is second reading and public hearing on ordinance 21965. It has to do with project known as Project Honey, solar farms developed out on Highway 15 North. You also have an additional resolution under new business on this agenda, the same project. And the terms of the fee and little tax agreement are 6% fixed millage, fixed assessment ratio of 6%. Millage would adjust every 5 years, but there's going to be a special revenue credit which should be adjusted every year, so the net effective fee that the project would pay the fee in lieu of tax in the amount of $4,000 annually for 40 years. Now, it's come to the council's attention that this project, this solar farm, is not going to be out in the middle of a cornfield. It's going to be in a place where there's some residences relatively close by. So we need to look at the buffering next to the Cybers Trail and next to the residences on 15 North. I will acknowledge those need to be addressed. So I'm interested in what the public has to say about that and what the council has to say about that. That will need to be negotiated prior to third reading.
Any other questions of Mr. Bryant? Prior to having second reading on ordinance number 21965, which is a fee in lieu of tax agreement, we will have a public hearing. I now declare the public hearing open. Anyone wishing to speak for or against this fee in lieu of tax, please come to the podium and say your name for the record, please.
Good evening, Council. My name is Chip Fanning. I am a resident of the North Main Street area, directly across the street from this proposed project. I just want to tell you that we, the neighbors and I, are concerned about issues that we have been brought up to speed on in terms of the size of the unit that is proposed, and the location, buffering, as my colleague, Mr. Bryant, has said. We would very much like for council to give us as much information as possible before third reading. The neighborhood is very well established. It's been there 50 years. It's known as Runnymede subdivision. Most of the residents now are senior citizens, and they want to enjoy the golden years without any kind of noise or infringement of any kind of visual problems. We appreciate council giving us time to come this evening, and just want to have as much information provided as possible. Thank you, sir.
This will be provided to you prior to third reading, Mr. Solicitor.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, when the information is provided to the solicitor and his neighbors, will they have an opportunity to address council again?
If necessary.
Okay.
And I would like to be present during this, when that information is shared, and would also like, and I will get with you, Mr. Bryant, so that I can get exact address. I would like to make a site visit and also be present when you meet with some key people, maybe Mr. Solicitor or some others, to share the information, please.
Ms. McGinn, if you don't mind, I'd like to join you for that.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Good evening, County Council. My name is Louis Watkins. I live in Sumter County. And just basically to agree with Mr. Finney about the information, I've been saying all along that coming to these meetings for city council and county council and the agenda and presentations don't really speak to the projects. It just legalese in terms of giving, I'll say, skeleton information. And too many times, projects have came and been passed by the county council and the city council, and all it did was address the property. It don't address the project. And up and down Broad Street, we've had projects come on the agenda just to address the fact that the property wanted to be used. And then you drive by later and you see a big hotel popping up. And coming to these meetings, you don't get any information other than what we see on this agenda, and it's only like, I think, 10% of what's actually happening. So coming here and listening to the presentations and the voting on the issue don't give a clear picture of what is happening with that project and how it impacts on the community. And even with, I'll say, Broad Street, you see traffic increasing, and it reminds me of, I have a friend who lives up in North Carolina by Concord Mills, and to go from one end to the next end is, it takes almost an hour. So I'm just basically saying that the impact that it has, the environmental impact on the community, is not really spelled out at these meetings. And I think that it should be explained a little more about these projects, because reading this, I didn't know what was going on. And then now I'm hearing that there's a project that's coming up and there's going to be something built and it may have a negative impact on the community. So I think that council should give more information in the beginning. Thank you. So I'm not in favor of the project in this form. Thank you.
Anyone else? I declare the public hearing closed. Pleasure of council.
Question, I'm not sure if it's the time to ask, attorney or not, and since we have here, my question really is, have we addressed any contract with this company as far as what happens if they walk away?
Yes, there'll be a bond.
All
There'll be a bond. In fact, that's part of our zoning adult standards ordinance for solar. Going to take farms within 5 nautical miles of either Shaw Air Force Base or Sumter Airport, which this is. And there has to be a deconstruction or demolition bond set in place. And that's in the fee tax agreement. Also, it's in our ordinance as well. That's one of the things I
feel like it's enough to do what needs to be done if it needs to be. The bond amount, what do you mean?
Well, we're going to see about that. I mean, you know, we've got to find out, you know, what the demolition is going to be and how much the bond amount will be. That's another issue that is going to be worked out really at the building department. When you look at the building permit, they're going to need to show what the demolition is going to be and what the bond will be.
We won't have any input on that, or any say so.
The amount of the bond is not addressed in this, the specific amount of the bond is not addressed in the FEMA tax agreement currently. Requirements there, but the specific amount is not there.
I'm not familiar with the process, and don't know how they come up with that amount. We don't have anybody out there on staff that can come up with what it would cost to. I just want to make sure that the county doesn't get stuck with a big cost.
Of course, as a property owner,
20 years from now, when solar's gone, I would like for us to have some input into it myself.
I'll try to get an answer to your question.
Mr. Chairman, just to follow up on the Councilman Wilson Hall's comments and the comments from Mr. Watkins. This is not the first time that we've heard citizens say that they have had difficulty working through the maze of information when projects are scheduled to come in their area. Is there a committee that you would assign this task to explore what we can do to make sure citizens have a complete understanding and get their arms around potential projects that may be coming into their area? I remind us of the Dollar General on 261. And a lot of folks said that they just weren't aware. And so I know that that is not the way we want to treat our citizens. So is there anything that you could suggest? Is there a committee that you could assign this to so that we could figure out and ease providing information to citizens with projects coming into their area.
Certainly look into it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I want to move for, what is it, first reading? Second reading, but I would be very uncomfortable too, Mr. Solicitor, so I would certainly want to understand the buffers, and if y'all are comfortable with it, before I get my third vote on this thing. So I hope there'll be discussion with y'all, and y'all are comfortable with what we get ready to do before we do it. So that'll be a motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion to approve second reading by Mr. Baker, second by, a motion by Mr. Baker, seconded by Mr. Byrd, to have second reading with the caveat that we will get additional information as far as the buffering, getting that information to the solicitor and the residents of Runnymede, and also giving Ms. McGaney and Mr. Washington a chance to do the drive-by there before we have third reading. Okay, any further discussion? All in favor? Second reading, all opposed?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to abstain at this time.
Okay, second reading is approved. Third reading, ordinance number 21968. Bernie.
Mr. Chairman, Council, 21966 is an ordinance to authorize an option to lease property to FTC Communications LLC. This property is at the rear of the library on West Westmark. At the last meeting, Mr. Edens wanted to know about the term of the agreement. The attorney for FTC has provided me a sample lease or draft lease for your consideration. I will acknowledge that it goes, forced to go to 90 years. We don't have to go to that. We can go to whatever you want to go, but it's a 10-year lease with automatic options to renew for 10 years, unless we get notice that we don't want to renew. So it could be as short as 10 years.
Mr. Chairman, I would suggest we go 40 initially. But we still have the option at the end of getting 10 to run out.
Right, we could not renew after 10 or after 20 or after 30. And that's, at the end of 40, it's done. If my understanding, Mr. Eden's suggestion, I can make that happen by negotiating your desires with the attorney for FTC. And I explained to him, I said, I don't think the county council is going to go for 90 years. He said, well, just give me whatever we can, just understand you can lock it off for 10 years, every 10 years. So that's the introduction. We have a public hearing.
Okay, prior to third reading, we are having a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak for or against ordinance number 21966, authorizing an option to lease property to FTC, please come to the podium, state your name for the record. Seeing none, public hearing is closed.
Mr. Chair, did the councilman from Wilson Hall put his recommendation in the motion?
It's not a motion yet.
Okay.
I would make a motion to do that we approve third reading with for the year.
Okay. Does that require a second?
We got a motion.
I'll second.
Okay. We have a motion by Mr. Edens, second by Mr. Washington to approve third reading on ordinance 21968. Any further discussion? Hearing one, all in favor of approving third reading, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Third reading on ordinance 21968 is approved. Next item on the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, next item is ordinance 21968. It's an ordinance to adopt a revised business license ordinance in accordance with the Business License Standardization Act. So what you have before you, and you'll have public hearing before you have second reading, what you have before you is a complete substitution for our chapter 26 regarding licenses, permits, and miscellaneous business regulations, which brings our ordinance into compliance with the enabling legislation that allows us to have a business license. That concludes my comments, unless council members have questions prior to public hearing.
Okay, prior to third reading, we will have a public hearing on ordinance 21-968, which brings our ordinance in compliance with the state. Anyone wishing to speak for or against this ordinance, please come to the podium. Seeing none, public hearing is closed.
Approve third reading and approval. Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Bacon, seconded by Mr. Baker, that we approve third reading on ordinance number 21-968. Any further discussion? Hearing one, all in favor of approving, say aye. All opposed? Hearing none, ordinance 21-968 is approved. Next item on the agenda is a presentation by the East Carolina Housing Organization. Okay, not here, so moving right along. Ordinance, first reading on ordinance number 21-969.
Mr. Chair, members of the council, ordinance 21-969 will amend the ordinance that established the infrastructure fund that will allow private investors to apply to the county council for low interest loans for the purpose of constructing speculative buildings or spec buildings for economic development purposes. This was briefed a little earlier, special meeting, but I'll be glad to take any questions members of the county council have prior to first reading.
Any questions or comments from council?
I would just think that maybe turn down and give a little brief description of what we did. Listen to, I mean, just brief. Very brief.
As most members of the county council know, economic development is one of the powers granted to counties under the Home Rule Act. And so it's within the authority of the county council to engage in economic development. And in the past, county council funded a spec building which was then sold and leased. Prior to that, the county council put up a spec building with private investment. The first spec building we had was part city, part county, part Black River Economic Development Corporation, and part a lady who owned the real property, Mrs. Brady. So it requires some bit of collaboration to get these things done. The last spec building we did was funded in part by a no interest loan that we got from South Carolina Public Service Authority, or Santee Cooper. And so we sold the building, Santee Cooper got its money back. What we're trying to do is lure private developers to come to Sumter to invest their own money, to put up spec buildings, to be used for industries, and that would assist our economic development. This would be an opportunity to provide a little bit of incentive to private developers to come by having what I would call gap financing to finish off what's going to take to put up a spec building, or at least a shell of a spec building, at a low interest rate, no more than $2 million or 25% of the entire budget, as a way to induce private developers to undertake construction of a spec building. It would then induce industries to come and invest and create jobs. So it's all a tools to incentivize the construction of spec buildings by private developers, who would then have something we can sell or market to industries that are looking to locate in South Carolina.
Move approval, first reading. Moved 2969, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of first reading approval, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? First reading for ordinance 21969 is approved. Resolution number 2111, Mr. Attorney.
Mr. Chair, members of council, as I indicated earlier when we first started talking about the ordinance to approve the fee and tax agreement for Project Honey, the solar farm on 15 North. This is an inducement resolution which basically just sets forth the basic terms of the deal. 6% millage adjusting every 5 years. They're going to invest $2.8 million, and the deal will go on for 40 years, and they'll pay $4,000 a year. Usually, we get the inducement resolution done on first reading, and what in this case, we're having the inducement resolution now. If you have any questions?
Move for second reading. Move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Baker and seconded by Mr. Byrd, that we approve resolution 2111. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Resolution 2111 is approved. Come now to committee reports. Mr. Nixon, special meetings held today.
Mr. Chair, council members, good evening. Today at 4:30, council had a special call meeting. There were a number of items that were on the agenda. The first item, executive session, there were 2 items that have been previously discussed on our regular agenda and covered, so I'll leave that and move to the third activity, which was action by council authorizing the administrator to act as a signing agent for the continued opioid litigation. Council approved that authority to the administrator in anticipation that there may be some activity between now and the first of the year. Second item on the agenda was a request, and it's actually been approved as ordinance 21970, and that's a budget amendment ordinance that will allow us to utilize up to $100,000 toward the purchase of a new fire truck. And that again will require 2 other readings, which will occur in January. Third item on the agenda was an ARPA update. Mr. Bobby Galloway from our procurement department, along with our finance director, Mr. Bette Rogers, were present to discuss the process moving forward with what we're calling the mobile home project. Council appropriated $500,000 of the ARPA funds toward that project. We have identified 2 eligible entities, United Ministries and the CDC, South Sumter CDC, will be the 2 agents. We are now working through those contracts. We fully anticipate that those monies will be available in the community for the projects in January. So that process continues. Another request on the ARPA was for additional funds for the premium pay in a total of $116,000, and that was approved by council. The last item that was discussed in the special meeting was the redistricting, the Sumter County Council redistricting process, as you know, has begun. We had information from Bruce Haskins, who is our county assessor mapping director. He shared the process, he shared the information that we received from Columbia, and we will now schedule a meeting on January the 6th for a special workshop for council to move through that process. And I believe that's all I have, sir.
Okay, Mr. Nixon, thank you. Come now to that part of the agenda where we have reports from council members on other meetings, trainings, and our conferences.
Mr. Chairman, if I could be recognized. As you know, the county administrator and staff have been going around the county talking to citizens about the penny tax, and I want to thank you for attending 2 of those meetings in my district. Very happy to see you there. Thank you for doing that. As you know, the meeting that we held at Catch-All, there were a group of folks that wanted to have a subsequent meeting to talk about how we wanted to prioritize the things that we thought were important. And you'll be amazed to know, Mr. Chairman, there were only 2 items on that list.
Roads.
Roads and a wellness center. And I think you will probably in January be seeing some of those folks appear before council to talk about both those items. In the intermediary, they've asked me to arrange for them to travel to Columbia to look at the Drew Wellness Center. The new mayor of Columbia, Daniel Rickerman, as you know, is a personal friend of mine. And I plan to reach out, well, I've already reached out and had a conversation with him about that. And so there will be a group of folks from District 1 that will be going over to do the tour and to hear the presentation from their budget folks. I want to extend that invitation to council because I think it's important. We understand that this project cannot be done in 1 year or under 1 penny for progress project, but it's something that is needed of the most northern part of the county where there is no gymnasium, no swimming pool, a community center that is aged, and we certainly feel strongly about the need, and we want council to join us as we explore this opportunity. So I wanted to share that with council, and I'll be providing more information on that. The second thing, and this will be the last item, and we can go home and begin our Christmas vacation. The second item is, as you know, I have been very involved and very interested in the litter program, because in my district we have an extreme litter problem. I know that the litter committee has been appointed. They've had a couple of meetings. I think it would be helpful if we could begin to get monthly reports from the litter committee so we know where they are, what they're doing, what their plans are, because at this point we don't have any information. I'd also like to make a personal request of the litter committee. I know that county administrator has already purchased the litter truck, and he was very aggressive in getting on top of that. Thank you, Mr. Administrator, for doing that. And we certainly have a need in District 1 to get that truck and any other equipment and personnel out. I have restrained myself from posting pictures of the trash in District 1 around the recycling area. And of course, it's a little bit different in town than it is out of town. The trash is picked up in town generally, but in the rural areas, we have to take our trash to the dump, and a lot of times trash flies off. So we have an abundance of litter in the area. It increases property value, it creates animals, deers, wild hogs, and various other things that maybe the folks downtown don't have to put up with. So if there is something we can do, and I know the councilman from Wilson Hall is the appointee to the committee, but we need help in our area now. If we can start with experimenting, I think District 1 is probably the area that has the most litter out of all of the 7 council districts. And if it's not the most, I guarantee you it's close, and if you don't believe me, I can post the pictures. But I've restrained from doing that. And Ms. McGanny, you probably next after that.
Mr. Chairman, I have to disagree with you. I believe mine's pretty bad too at times. I think Ms. McGanny wins. Who has Brewington Road in the landfill? Okay, they win the prize. I'm sorry, but unfortunately.
Well, I can always put up the pictures. I can put up the pictures. I have refrained from doing that, but I think if we can get some help from our appointee on moving, particularly in District 1, in the council ladies district from Shiloh, that would be a good example to the rest of the county about what we're trying to do.
did talk to Gary, I think recently. I know he hired the second person and had some questions like, if I see some trash or illegal litter, what do I do as a council member? And he told me they're working on it, okay, who do I contact? So I know it's come up, within the last week, I believe. So I know he's working on, I don't know about the rest, but,
and monthly.
Some update would be great, you don't have to be necessarily monthly for me, but keep us in the loop, basically. So,
Mr. Chairman, if I could address that request on the monthly report, I'm pretty sure all of council is on the email list that sent the minutes of every meeting. If not,
I don't
make sure that you are.
I haven't got
I was under the
I have not
impression
I hadn't
that
gotten it.
she was emailing all of county council, city and county.
I'll check
the
on
minutes.
exactly where they went, but I do know that,
I looked at it one time.
Yeah.
I'll make sure.
Yeah, and
who would it be coming from?
They should be coming now from Beverly, but they should have been coming from me before. I'll make sure, I'll get a copy.
I attended the first meeting, and the second meeting I had a conflict and I wasn't there. But those updates would be helpful.
Okay.
And as a last comment, and I've said this before, there are a lot of very important functions that I personally think we should not be passing off to citizen committees. There are things that as council members, we need to be directly responsible for, and we do not need to pass these things off to citizens committees. The litter scenario is one of them. Roads is another. And that's a conversation for another day, because I know you're ready to close out, Mr. Chairman. So I'll close my comments out, but those are two things that I think are important. And we'll have that conversation another day. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, if I could make one more comment, as long as I've been here, if we've ever, and I know this applies to all districts, if you've got a road that needs addressing, we've always contacted the administrator. And you don't have to go through this committee if you've got problems in your district.
We're talking about paving roads.
Oh, no, I'm talking about litter on roads. I'm talking about, litter on roads. Call the administrator, that's his job.
Before we close out, Mr. Chairman, let me ask a question, please. Because, I made the statement before and I'll say it again. When the grass gets cut, it looked worse than it did before they cut the grass. Because now you see all of the litter exposed, and it looked bad. And anyone who haven't been to Sumter or coming to Sumter on one of those roads will look at it and say, this is a terrible place. Now, one time we used to have organizations that adopted a highway. I don't know where that program is, because I know my fraternity in water, ice water and so forth. But I think we need to get back into that, because we need to get the citizens involved in dealing with this litter. And we need a litter campaign. I mean, how much information do we put out about being responsible, not to litter? And what type of programs or rewards can we give communities for having a clean community or area? So I'm thinking that just having a litter program, going out picking up litter, that's after the fact. What I want to do is, what can we do to stop people from littering? That's the main thing. Because, like I said, when the grass gets cut, it looks terrible. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two things to address that, Mr. Baden. I agree with you. I'm not on the litter committee, but I do know that one of the members is from the DOT, and they are working on a schedule so that prior to DOT cutting, they will get with the litter committee, and we will address picking up the litter prior to them cutting the grass. Secondly, there is a communications arm of the litter committee that is going to be developing programs for our schools, advertisements, and that type of thing. So, point well taken. That's all part of the litter committee, and as they get ramped up, those things will be addressed. Thank you. Yes, sir. Appreciate it. Any other council members? Monthly reports, Mrs. Flannery.
In council's monthly reports, we have the sheriff's monthly report and also the COVID monthly report. That's it.
County Administrator, Mr. Mixon.
Mr. Chair, just a couple of quick items. I want to remind council, Councilman Washington mentioned the 3 previous penny meetings. We have 2 remaining on our schedule. We have one in Salterstown, I believe it's coming up Monday, and then, Thursday, and then Monday we'll be out at Bethel. We also have had a couple of other requests from some other areas, and we'll address those in January. But I thought the process, or at least the process, seems to be going very well. The community input has been very valuable and well supported. I think we've had better than 25 to 30 members at each one of our meetings, so that's a really good turnout. And the information again has been very good. We're encouraging folks to sign a form, fill out a form for their request, but also be available online so that if they're not available or not able to come to the meeting, that they'll at least be able to go online and register their request as well, so that we can compile all that information as we move forward. But again, good process. I'm going to speak briefly to the LIDA program. There is a lot of activity. Unfortunately, you're not seeing a lot of it because they're being done by the individual committees. But they report out, and hopefully when we get this minutes issue addressed, you'll be able to see all those activities. But I am encouraged, strongly encouraged by the activity and the participation by that committee. They're energetic. They're excited about their roles. Just this week, they had a special meeting because they knew the holidays was coming up, so they didn't want to wait till the next meeting. So they had a special meeting at lunchtime to discuss the marketing effort and the promotional efforts. And they've got some very good, very qualified individuals on that portion of their committee. So excited to see what that will be, but I would expect a whole lot of information coming out in January, at least the first quarter, along with some scheduled activities and events that will occur around the county. So again, I know it seems like it's moving slow, but there's a lot of movement by that group, and want to certainly encourage them to continue that great work. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Mixon. Come now to the public comment portion of our meeting where citizens desiring to speak can address county council. Anyone desiring to speak to county council, please proceed to the podium. State your name for the record, please. County council, public comment session is open.
My name is Louis Watkins. In terms of notification to the public, the citizen of the meetings that are being held, all the public meetings, the public hearings and stuff, the only agency that I know that sends out an agenda or sends out mail every month is the water department. And I think that you can sometimes piggyback on the water department and more people will know what's going on. Other than that, there's not a mailing list that goes out so no one will know. That's number one. Number two, I know when I cut my grass, I have to pick up the trash, you know? And I think, to have give somebody a contract to cut grass, and all they do is go cut the grass and don't clean it up, is a waste. And that's probably why you have the problem. It should be included in their contract that they have to clean it up. And that eliminates a lot of the garbage that you see on the street. The other comment I'd like to make is that back a few years ago, a young lady got killed on Pike. And it all went away. We asked that an overpass or walkway be put on Pike on the other side because the county and the city allow housing to be built on the other side, but no economic development, no stores or Family Dollars or anything on that side of the street. So everybody have to walk over. And they're still walking over to the other side to go to Shoney's in different places. And it's just another accident waiting to happen. it will also ask that the speed be reduced to 45 miles per hour in the city limits for that stretch. That hasn't happened. Ask that penny tax be used to build a walkway so that people on that side can come on this side, because the highway divides the community. So, the penny tax is a good thing, but all we see is police stations being built, courthouses, stuff like that being built. But like, safety and the health of the citizen who live on that side of the street is not being addressed. So I would ask for the council to revisit that issue before someone else get killed. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. White. Anyone else wishing to speak to council? Public comment section closed.
Move for adjournment.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Baker, seconded by Mr. Berg, that we adjourn. All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.